Welcome back to topic 13. So we're going over managing inventory for success, which is 13.3. So when we consider retail's inventory strategies, do you guys know any of these? Like for example, Walmart, they're always about the best deal, right? And Amazon, they have everything from A to Z. Aldi, they have deep discounts. Nordstrom, they focus on customer service. So therefore, if they don't have it in the store, they're going to send it to you. And Costco, they like to buy large quantities of items at one time. So when it's gone from Costco, it's very unlikely that they're going to have it again. So we have three common principles that cut across all these companies when they maintain their inventory. They have to define what is success for their customer strategy. So are they looking at having it on the shelf so they can sell it so the customers are happy? Or are they looking at, we will find it like Nordstrom does from wherever we need to get it to the customer? So by inventory is a key part of that, because Nordstrom wouldn't have to go outside trying to find the item if they had it on the shelf. But Walmart would have a large quantity on the shelf. Or you can go even further, and Costco has a huge quantity, but when it's out, it's out. So inventory is a key part of the value-added system. You're adding value to the customer. So we have to also think of the trade-offs too. By having all that inventory, we might have too much inventory on one thing, but not enough of another. So we had somebody made that choice of a trade-off. Therefore, where do we make that decision? Where does that end up? So there's a lot of good things about having inventory. For example, you can meet demand quickly. You can protect against uncertainty. For example, the supplier had a fire in their building and they're not going to be able to ship you anything for a month. Well, having an excess inventory can cover that for you. It helps you operate efficiently, and it improves resource utilization. For example, if you're a manufacturer and you want to do one production line, you want to make sure you have all your inventory there so you can run everything through, and maybe you only have to produce for 2 days in a month rather than 4 days, because you can do a larger batch, because you have the inventory to do that. You have the raw materials on hand. You can also manage your lead times. Nothing magically appears on your doorstep when you just think that you need it. Companies have to order ahead of time. Like for example, it's March right now, so companies have already been thinking about next Valentine's Day. So they're already putting their orders in. So for example, they might be ordering boxes of chocolate with Hershey's or Godiva or any of the other chocolate brands. So they're trying to manage their lead times by putting these orders in so they arrive on time. But what if it's a product you need now to be sold next week? Well, you have to figure that out. So how long does it take for the order to be processed, put on a truck, and sent to you? If you're a small company, it might take longer. If you're a larger company, it might take less time. So when we get into our logistics, we can dive more into that, reasons why the lead time would be longer or shorter. And preparing for demand growth. If we know that our product is selling really well because there is a huge demand for it, for example, right now, hand sanitizer is a huge demand right now. So with that, if you have an excess inventory in a warehouse, you can ship it because your customers are buying it, right? But if you have nothing in the warehouse, now you have to go to your supplier or you have to manufacture it yourself in order for it to be sent to your retailers. So that's good things for inventory. If you have all this, you can cover a lot of these. Now we have some bad things. We have the higher costs. It costs money for the inventory to sit on the shelf. I'm sure you've come across inventory in your own pantry, canned goods, for example, that you looked at the expiration date and it was expired. I'm sure everybody can go in there right now. I'm sure I got expired canned goods in my house right now. I try to cycle them through. It doesn't always happen. Sometimes you forget. But if you buy more of one item, you're going to miss an opportunity for sales on the other side. So another product might be in more demand than where you put the money on for the other inventory. And then what happens when things are obsolete? You had version 2 and now version 3 just came out. You had the Apple iPhone 9 and now the 10 came out, and you have the 9 that you're trying to sell, but now the 10's out. Well, your demand for 9 is going to go down, but the 10s are going to be a hot commodity. So you're going to lose value in that because you want to sell them, so you're going to discount the price, right? Because you want them out, because you want to bring in the 10s. Move your money that you're spending on inventory onto the newest product. Then we have the bad side, or the extremely ugly side of inventory. It hides problems. Problems such as low quality goods. You might have bought 1,000 units, but they were manufactured with a defect. Well, yes, you want to make sure the customers get a good product, but you have 1,000 on the shelf. Having the customers complain in the warranty and do all these things, some customers may not even realize there's a defect. But having all these, you're not going to notice that where is it? Is it just a couple items that are defective, or is it all of them? Or having an excess inventory, things will go missing. Whether it got put somewhere else in a warehouse, it got thrown out because somebody thought it was an old something that should be thrown out. Somebody might have taken it home. There's a lot of reasons. Inventory goes missing. Shrinkage. So there's a lot of influence on our inventory. So we have to look at these trade-offs and see at what point do we want to have that inventory. Do we expect our commodity to be a hot item, where it's going to be selling really fast? Well, we might want a larger inventory, but that might mean that we need to have a lower inventory of something else. We might even have to anticipate that we're going to stock out, meaning we have nothing left, and then we have to talk to our manufacturers to try to get that product again. So we have to balance these. So to make these trade-offs more visible, think about a domestic supplier versus a overseas supplier. A domestic supplier, let's say in the United States, has a pretty consistent lead time. They put it on a truck, the truck goes. But because it's domestic, it might cost more, because the minimum wage in the United States, depending on where you're sourcing your materials from, could be $15 to $20 down to $7.25. Just depends on where you're going. But if you go with an overseas supplier, you're generally going to have a lower cost because the living wage in other countries is different. So, for example, you might be able to spend half as much by using an Asian supplier, such as Vietnam, Taiwan, Korea, China, Indonesia. You might be able to have it manufactured there for half as much. However, you have that trade-off of longer lead times because it has to go on a boat, depending on your quantity. Or you're going to spend more money to get that to you by sending it by air. You can't drive a truck across the ocean, right? So it's got to go one of those two methods. So we have these trade-offs. We have to look at the whole picture to figure out what's going on. So reducing inventory. So on the supply side, we have to figure out who is the right supplier and then develop them. That might mean we work with them. We send our engineers over there to engineer the product. We make sure they're providing us the right quality. All these things that we've already talked about. And then we can substitute information for inventory. So if we know our retailer is selling 100 units a day, well, that means we have 3,000 or 3,100 units being sold a month. So now we can take that information and go to our supplier and say, hey, our product is selling at about 3,000 units per month. So we want to place a order for, let's say, 3,500. That way we have what we need for a month, and then we have some extra. Now, if we look at the demand side, we need to know what the customer is, values in our product. And we need to work with our colleagues. So because our customer can change on a dime with what they value. There might be a hot new product that comes out. For example, the fidget spinners. I'm sure you guys have all played with one at one time. I think I have one on my desk somewhere. So those were really hot at one point, but then they seem to have died. Just, no one wants them anymore. So trying to figure out that demand, what's driving it. Is it because it was marketed so much, or was it just kind of a cool new fad thing? We don't know. We have to work with our customers, find out from our colleagues, talk to marketing, talk to sales, talk to all these people. More information is better. So finally, we have the essence of our inventory. So inventory is important for many reasons, because if it's not available for purchase, the customer is not going to be happy, especially if there's been a big advertising campaign. So, but if we have a large inventory, it's going to drive our costs up considerably. So inventory is the largest component of logistics. By having a box on the shelf, well, that box had to get there. That box has to have somebody put it on the shelf, or a robot put it on the shelf. Then while it's sitting there, it costs money. And then once it's taken off the shelf and sent to a customer, it costs more money. So logistics, that whole process from the raw manufacturing all the way through the end user, is about 10% of the United States gross domestic product. That's a lot of money. So logistics are about, when you look at it in a corporate balance sheet, about 8 to 10% of the cost of goods sold. So any little bit we can take out of that is going to have a huge impact. So if we can bring it down to 7%, for some of these multi-billion-dollar companies, a 1% difference is huge. But if you can get a 0.5% at these big companies, they're also going to celebrate. So we have two core questions here when we're looking at inventory. So how much should we order, and when should we order? So we'll talk about that in another section. But those two questions are what are going to lead us to determining more about our inventory.